Hello everybody, welcome, I'm No02. This is a support deck. That's right, this is a support deck. Keep in mind too that all the decks that I'm suggesting here have been tested in solo queue. These decks of course will work with will work with your friends in a team setting. If you're playing with your friends in a team setting, you can get rid of hazard pay, replace it with share the wealth, etc. But this is what I typically play with when I'm playing with random people. This is like you are the primary support character. But there's an important concept here that I want to talk about just a little bit. There's two actually, two things happening here. One was very experimental, right? I'm so edgy. When I was testing this deck out, and I actually really liked how it felt and the way it played out. I said two things, but I can remember one. I can't remember the other one now. Anyways, let's get into the deck, and I'll remember hopefully, right? Oh yes, I remember now. Because we're playing with random people, this deck is going to have the ability for us to be both the field cannon person if we need to. So you can potentially do the field cannon at the end. Experimental thing here, and we'll just get into it. Okay, hazard pay grenade pouch because that's who I am, in my soul, right? If we have any problems, any issues, we can throw a flashbang or throw a pipe bomb or a grenade, right? Even though we don't have bomb squad, don't be afraid to run grenades because, I mean, grenades are still going to result in doing most of a tall boy's health. By the time they get to ferocious and monstrous, you're doing about half, somewhere between like 30 to 50% of their damage and health. It's with one grenade, even though it's not bomb squatted out. So use what you prefer. Flashbangs are obviously cheaper and things like that, right? Then we have experienced EMT, because we're preparing for the crossing, but we also want to be a team player. So trauma recovery, stamina, regen, extra stamina, going to be really, really nice. I would say though, don't worry about preemptively popping EMT on everybody in the safe room. If you have the money for it, if you have that luxury, that's fine. But notice here in this deck, shoulder bag is way down here. Notice here that this deck is not dignified by a cleaner. This deck is neutral. I would say you can run this deck comfortably with any of the cleaners. Any of them. Whoever you prefer. Notice then that if we're not playing Mom, we don't have the extra support slot. Our shoulder bag is all the way down here, but shoulder bag is so generally universal and nice to have when you're being a support character, especially for those longer missions. The beginning of Act 1, I mean, Blood Tunnel's a decent length, Pain Train's a decent length. Clean Sweep can feel like a long time, right? But like, for the most part, the experimental thing here is that instead of having shoulder bag, we're going to be running support scavenger. Support scavenger. Excuse me. For the most part, we're just preparing for the crossing here, though. Fleet of foot, superior cardio. I was playing around with having EMT and mandatory PT, but here, let's keep to our solo clutch roots here, right? The most part, if your teammates are dying around you, between EMT, fleet of foot, and superior cardio, you will be able to complete Pain Train and the crossing by yourself. You'll have the potential to do that. So let's get that out of the way. At Clean Sweep, though, we start getting into the fun cards, right? Support Scavenger. Keep in mind our whole team can carry a support item. And if we're playing Doc, or if we just tell our team in general, hey, I'm running a support deck, be sure that be sure to drop your stuff for me so that I can heal you. And most players get that concept, especially if you're playing Doc. Characters would do it automatically. So instead of having deeper pockets, we're going to try and have the map produce more resources for us to tap into. So we don't need more pockets. We're just going to be bandage here, pills there, pop them, pop them, pop them. Take what you can, keep going, etc., right? Support Scavenger will take care of all the little things, etc. We are sort of hoping for bandages so that the healing is permanent, which then hence we get Poultice. Because we have all these little random things happening, all these tiny bits of healing, Poultice will turn our bandages into almost pain pills at 45 points of health. Into almost medkits. And Poultice will turn our pain pills into almost bandages, 20 out of the 25, you know what I mean? So Poultice and Support Scavenger are really great cards to have together because they Poultice basically makes sure that no matter what you're finding, it's always going to provide some amount of health. Then for Barroom Blitz, we're stepping into Shredder. It's up to you, depending what your team composition is. If you have a reliable damage dealer to kill mutations, you can carry pipe bombs. If you don't, you need maybe flashbangs or grenades. Either way, Shredder is going to be our means of providing team support damage. Whatever we shoot at, and then a teammate helps us shoot at, it'll get killed. Right? We get an extra 15% damage boost to the whole team when we're focus firing. Also, too, if you are choosing to run grenades, you can unload your gun. With this deck, I would recommend an AR or an SMG, whatever you prefer. Unload your gun into the tall boy, and then you throw your grenade. And your grenade will benefit from the 15% damage debuff. From the, whatever it is, debuff resistance damage here that we got going on with Shredder. Then Marked for Death. I love, if you're going to have Marked for Death in your deck in Act 1, the place to pick it up is Card 9. Card 9 is a special delivery. It's the mission right before the diner where you have to run around and find the supply crates, those orange crates. You need 2 of them in Nightmare mode. That mission, if you don't know, always has the corruption card called the Dark. And the Dark reads, it's dark, there's snitches, and if the snitches are killed, they trigger a horde anyways. So that's the Dark card. That's the mutated snitch card. And it's always on Card 9. That corruption card is always on a special delivery. So getting Marked for Death is actually really convenient because things off in the darkness, if you ping them, they get the red silhouette. So you can keep track of snitches through walls. If you hear something spawn, a tall boy giggle in the darkness, you can spam ping and find him. Things like that. It can be a really convenient card to have on this mission that's always nighttime. Plus there's good chance for a boss card to spawn, and between Shredder and Marked for Death, we now have a 25% team damage boost, essentially, to all bosses that we fight from here on out. It's a nice, huge chunk of damage boost by having the Shredder Marked for Death combo. Finally, we have Shoulder Bag. And we're picking it up here. Even though the diner is not a particularly long level, we are guaranteed meds at the end of the diner, right? We're guaranteed 2 medkits. Granted that things are going well, you have enough razor wire, you're setting up in the right place, your things are going, etc. People have good decks. A lot of times you can do the diner for totally free, completely free. Not a problem at all. And so ideally we're not using those 2 medkits. So at this point, try and take those 2 medkits. Maybe you have 3 or whatever, but try and take those medkits and etc. The thing about Support Scavenger is don't be afraid to leave the safe room with only maybe with no meds. Don't be afraid to. If you guys are doing good on health and you're tight on money, leave the safe room with no meds. It will work out most of the time. Ish, you know what I mean? Because we have experienced EMT, and if we want to be popping it all the time on everybody... Oh yeah, Support Scav also helps with experienced EMT. We're always going to have enough meds to pop everyone at least once, right? But when we get the shoulder bag, right? When we get the shoulder bag, though, we really do want to take those 2 medkits with us, if possible. Hence, now we get Medical Professional. So up until this point with EMT, we're totally fine with just buying pain pills or bandages. Medkits are good too if you have the money for it, but if you don't worry about it. The little stuff is still going to work. But now that we get Medical Professional, ideally, we really do want to be carrying the medkits now. At this point, we really do want to be buying medkits if we can afford it. Just because once we get the Bad Seeds, Hell's Bells, Abandoned, those are really long maps. So right out the gate, we'll have the ability to restore lives and extra trauma. Notice here that there's no Needs of the Many. If you don't have a mom on your team, don't worry about it. The important part for Medical Professional is going to be the trauma recovery. So between trauma recovery of Professional, EMT, and then we get Safe Room recovery, we're going to be recovering a nice chunk of trauma for everybody. The fact of the matter is, there's no amount of healing that you're going to be able to do to save a bad player from dying and getting traumatized out. That's their problem, right? You can help them. Pick and choose your favorite, right? The character that's actually going to help you survive these missions, right? But for the most part, we don't need to worry about investing so deeply heavy, super duper, only support all the time, always. Just because we want to have the ability to survive ourselves as well, right? Because we're in solo queue. Which is why we have Fleet of Foot, Superior Cardio, Shredder, Marked for Death. That helps our damage as well. But for these longer missions now, we got the Medkit, Poultice, 70 health medkits, recovers 15 trauma. Poultice almost guarantees that pretty much we're always going to be healing that extra trauma damage with our Poultice value. Then we get Safe Room Recovery, the extra edge off of it here. Keep in mind, too, the reason why we have Medical Professional first and Safe Room Recovery second. 11 is Bad Seeds. That's the checkpoint. So if you're starting at this checkpoint, you're not going to get the value out of Safe Room Recovery. You're not really going to get the value out of Medical Professional from going from 10 to 11, but in the middle of the mission, you are going to be healing people with medkits, so you will get value out of Medical Professional immediately. Once you get the Hell's Bells, people are going to have some damage and trauma. Now we get the full value. Cold brew coffee here. It would be nice to have cold brew coffee for Hell's Bells for the boards, but for the most part, we want the value, right? We're the support character. Let's do some supporting. We'll get Safe Room Recovery, nice neutral support card, and then cold brew coffee. Nice bit of quality of life. We're applying medkits, so the use speed is relevant. We're always swapping things between our gun and our grenades and our medkits, so swap speed is good. Aim speed. Cold brew coffee is an amazing card. It can fit in literally every deck and have value. Then we get canned goods for survivability on Rolling Thunder, because if you are in a position where you have to run around in order to survive, things are probably not going very well. So it's much better if you can tank through a little bit of extra damage just to hold your position and keep the hordes back. That's going to be best case scenario. Canned goods will help you do that. Then we have Headband Magnifier. This is sort of our clutch card here. If you get to Rolling Thunder and nobody has any extra use speed, between Cold Brew Coffee and Headband Magnifier, we have a little bit of an ability to do so, right? It's not ideal, but it's totally doable with teammates who are playing correctly or good enough. If your teammates deserve to beat Rolling Thunder, you can get them there by operating the Field Cannon. With these two cards, you can get them there if you need to, right? But only if they deserve it. And you do deserve it because you knew you were running these two cards because you knew what the campaign was. Getting to Rolling Thunder and literally no one has any extra use speed. I'm just like, no, nobody thought about this. Nobody's thinking, but you're thinking. And this deck is for you. This deck is for the thinking support player. Let me know what you think of this deck, if you have success with it or not, if it's fun to play. It gets your I like to be the support itch scratched, while also being able to do some shredding and Mark for Death and running around and stuff like that, etc. Right? Let me know. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the future.